I sign in at the main gate a little before 8 a.m. with a press badge that has been laminated so many times the edges look like ice. The officer in the glass box checks the roster, checks my gear list, checks my name again. I set the recorder, spare batteries, and 2 notebooks in the gray plastic bin. He slides a clipboard through the slot. I initial the line that says I understand the rules about contact, contraband, and interruptions if security conditions change without notice. The buzzer sounds. The first door opens, and the cool breath of conditioned air pushes out into the heat. I step into the sally port, and the first door grinds shut behind me. The second door does not open right away. I stand on painted shoe outlines and watch dust turn in the fluorescent light. The officer holds up one finger. Wait. He presses a talk button and says my name into a handset. Somewhere down the corridor, a second buzzer answers. The door slides aside, and I follow yellow footprints past a row of lockers, a wall of inmate art behind glass, and the framed Employee of the Month photo that looks shot in a hurry under the same buzzing bulbs. My handler today is Sergeant Mendoza. He moves fast and quiet and makes sure I match his pace. Non-contact room, he says. No pens until we're seated. Pencils only. If we call end, it's end. No stand-up shots, no handshakes, no passing paper. You know the drill. He glances at the recorder and the cassette deck I still carry for redundancy. Analog too, old school. Old habit, I answer. Sometimes the old thing hears what the new thing ignores. That sentence earns a small nod. In this place, habits keep order. We pass a vending area for staff with the same sealed sandwiches every week. A TV in the corner scrolls a local weather bar about a stalled front and a heat advisory. On the counter, a desktop radio murmurs county scanner chatter just low enough to blend into the air. The reason I am here is inmate 47291, whose letters arrived for months in the same blue ink with sharp corners on every word. He called himself the prophet of the apocalypse, then crossed out prophet and wrote witness, then crossed out both and wrote messenger. He included dates and times in the margins that matched small incidents reported by local outlets. A water main break at a school, an evacuation drill, a transformer failure at a substation. None of it dramatic on its own, all of it oddly precise. 2 weeks ago, he wrote that if I visited today, I would hear the county's voice tell everyone to shelter at exactly 11:13 a.m. That line put me on the road before dawn. Death row is a quiet hallway that smells clean in a way that never goes away. The walls hold sound close, as if the place mines its own history. Mendoza unlocks the interview room. Glass divides the space. I will sit on one side with my gear. He will sit on a stool just outside the door, and the inmate will be in a chair with a chain looped through a ring on the floor. The intercom is the kind that gives your voice a thin metal edge. There is a clock high in the corner, slightly off-center, counting slow. Counselor signed off last night, Mendoza says. Warden wants this done by noon. We may cut earlier if the drill goes long. Drill? I ask. County emergency test, he says. First Wednesday after the first Monday, usually. Except this month they moved it. He checks his watch. You'll hear it. He opens the case for the digital recorder, checks the battery himself, then closes it and slides it back. He does not touch the cassette deck. The door across the glass opens, and 2 officers walk in with a tall man in a tan jumpsuit. His wrists sit in a chain belt. His beard is neat, his hair close cropped as if a barber measured the clippers along a ruler. He looks 50, but could be younger. He lifts his eyes, not fast, not slow, and finds me. For a second, I see the man from the letters because the letters had a gaze inside the language. Mr. Coyne, he says when the officers seat him. The intercom gives his voice a mild echo. Thank you for coming. I press record on both machines. I say the date, the location, the time, and his name. Malachi Price. I learned more last night. His case file is a thicket of hearings and exhibits and motions, most of them now resolved. The date set for his sentence is near, close enough that different departments inside this facility have already begun the quiet schedules that attend a day no one says aloud. We agree on ground rules. He will not discuss the details of the offense itself. He will not name victims or family. He understands I can end at any time. He holds my gaze and nods one time. You called yourself a prophet, I say. Then you crossed it out. Prophet is a job, he says. Job implies a boss. I have none. He looks at the ceiling speaker. Messengers walk, messages move. What message are we moving? The ending that is already moving, he says. I do not mean trumpets. I mean the part where one small assumption at a time becomes a wall. He explains without hurry. In prison, time itself can draw lines on a face. He reads schedules when he can see them. He listens to routines when he cannot. He knows the day room count lands at the same minute a truck backs into the loading bay every Wednesday for kitchen staples. He knows that when a storm warning runs long at the bottom of the TV in the staff break room, the laundry delay shifts movement by 10 minutes later, which means the maintenance office sorts keys for the next round, while the radio operator steps away to heat breakfast, which means a specific ring of brass sits on the wrong hook for exactly 5 minutes every other week. He has a talent for patterns that most people do not care to hear about, because patterns sound small until they move together. I wrote to you, he says, because you record patterns and you do not dress them up. He looks at the analog deck, and because you still trust a ribbon. Mendoza's radio pops and murmurs. He sits straighter. Overhead, the fluorescent bars blink once and hold. A new voice enters the hallway. Admin control, clipped and even. A vessel overturned on the interstate 2 miles east. Hazmat en route. Facility goes to internal movement only. The phrase means no one moves without a call from control. The interview can continue because we are already locked in place. The voice adds that county may use the emergency system to issue instructions to the surrounding area. First sign, Malachi says, as if the weather put a finger on the glass. I keep my questions short. He keeps his answers plain. He talks about learning to count without seeing a clock. He learned it long before these walls, in a childhood home where silence lasted longer than it should have, and small noises told him where someone stood in the next room. He learned to listen for pressure changes in vents, and to log the delay between a door opening and the first footstep through it. Long before this offense, long before this row, he worked jobs where the dangerous parts were not the dramatic ones. People were hurt because a checklist line looked boring, or because a gasket cost $7 and no one stocked 2. He takes a breath, steady and deliberate, and asks if I brought the letter from 2 weeks ago. I pull a copy from the folder and read the line again. If you come on the 14th, you will hear the county at exactly 11:13 tell everyone to shelter. I check the clock. 11:11. He watches my eyes move. He does not smile. Is this a trick? I ask, keeping my tone even. Do you have a friend with a watch? Are you hearing something I am not? I have the same ears, he says. I have fewer distractions. I cannot choose where to look, so I learn to look at what is left. He tilts his head toward the ceiling vent. Hear the fan stumble? Maintenance got a note last week. The damper sticks. When the system flips to recirc, it will jam for a count of 4. The screen will not close the way the book says. That delay will make admin nervous. Nervous admin follows the book harder. That is how small delays become rules that collide with other rules. And then a person with a key goes where he should not, at a moment he should not. If I sound like a fortune teller, forgive me. I am only reading the same book everyone else refuses to pick up. He falls quiet, because a tone cuts the air. The TV in the staff break area jumps channels by itself. The county seal fills the screen. The same tone repeats in the hallway speakers, steady, official, dry. A recorded voice begins to talk about a chemical spill wind shift and advises residents within a certain boundary to remain indoors, turn off air conditioning, and avoid roadways. It is exactly 11:13 when the voice says the word shelter. I look at the clock. I look back at Malachi. He looks at nothing. He listens. Mendoza glances in through the window. He points at his radio, then at the door. I gesture that we are rolling. He gives a short nod and sets his stool across the hall so he can watch both the door and us at once. The radio on his shoulder chatters as departments check in. Control instructs staff to distribute masks from the supply cabinet, to verify vents on recirculation, and to hold all movement except escorted essential. Do you see the future? I ask. It is a plain question and an unremarkable one, but the room turns just enough that I feel the edge of it. I see habits, he says. I see corners. I see how corners become cages. The end of the world is not a blast. It is a hallway that narrows 1 inch an hour. He leans a little closer to the glass. You will want to leave through the east sally port when the all clear comes, he says. Do not. Why? Because the door contact switch sticks, he says. Because the staffer assigned to that door today had a night with a crying child and a morning with a missed lunch, and because he will try to clear an alarm by overriding the panel, and because the panel will lock him out, and because someone will ask you to wait while he tries again. You are not here to wait. I write it down because writing is how I add weight to a thing. Malachi watches the pencil as if the pencil has a sound. He asks a question of his own. Do you still keep a coin in your left pocket for luck? Yes, I say, before I think to deny it. He could not know that. The coin is a habit from when I started this work. A dime. I have put it in the same pocket for a decade without saying so aloud. You pat that pocket before you cross a street, he says, and something unsteady passes through my hands, not visible but present in the way I touch the notebook again. You will pat it when the lights flicker. When they do, count 4. Then ask Sergeant Mendoza to move you west. Tell him the prophet told you. He will not like the name, but he will move you anyway. He wants to keep going, so I let the tape run. He speaks about his cell without complaint. He counts the forklift beeps in the loading bay to guess what kind of delivery is coming. He can tell laundry from food by the low gear at the corner and by how long it idles under the eave. He names the order of keys on a ring by the way the ring settles when someone holds it up with 3 fingers. None of it is mystical. All of it is practice. At 11:28, the vents cough. I hear the fans stutter not once but twice. The room trades one kind of emptiness for another as the air shifts from outside to inside. A faint plastic smell blows through the grill, the scent of the duct itself, warm and dust-sweet. Someone down the hall swears softly in a way that is not offensive so much as automatic. Boots move quick past our door. The overhead bulbs blink and hold. I do not pat my pocket. I want to. I keep my hands on the notebook. Help me with one thing, he says. When we are done, do not sell me as a puzzle. Do not sell me as a monster either. Tell it straight. A man learned to listen because no one listened to him early. That is the whole story and the story before it. Tell me about the line you wrote in the margin, I say. You wrote, "Midnight is noon if the clocks are wrong." He nods. You have seen clocks in offices that are off. People say it does not matter if you can see your phone, but the room obeys the wall. If the wall is wrong by 10 minutes and the phone is right, people still glance up and move on the wall's time because the wall is what everyone can point at to avoid blame. In here, the wall is everything. We are living under a wall clock that is wrong, outside too. You feel it. The hour on the news does not match the hour in your bones. The drill is not at the time the memo printed. A truck driver works a shift that was designed for a route that does not exist anymore. Midnight is noon if the clocks drift, and no one resets them. He does not add a flourish. He lets the sentence sit and warm the glass. The intercom crackles again. Control instructs medical to hold in place. Maintenance to check roof vent 4. A code number repeats 3 times, followed by the words safe and contained and stand by. Tell me about tomorrow, I say. I do not use the word everyone avoids. I do not ask about the chemicals or the method, or anything that would dress the conversation in a coat it does not need. I ask if he has requests for the last hours that are permitted by policy. I asked for something that is not on the list, he says. The chaplain said he would try. What is it? A picture of a lake I knew when I was a boy, he says. Not to bring it here, just to mail it to a woman I wronged. She will know what to do with it. I note the phrasing. He does not say who the woman is. He does not ask me to carry a letter for him, which I would refuse by rule. He places the memory where he can see it without asking me to hold it. It is careful. It is almost kind. At 11:42, a siren bleeds into the building from outside, distant and steady. It is not the fire alarm. It is the slow baying of county trucks moving into position. Staff in blue coveralls hustle past with a crate of masks. A junior officer fumbles with the latch. Mendoza steps in, corrects the hand position, shows the trick where you press the thumb to the lower tab and lift with the index finger so the lid does not jam. He slides 2 masks through the slot as a formality in case the HVAC hiccups. He points to his radio and draws a small circle in the air with his finger. Keep rolling. I ask Malachi when he first started logging patterns seriously. He says the day he met a man who trained him to repair small engines. The man said an engine sings the same song when fuel is lean, no matter the brand. He learned the song, and then he learned the songs of other systems. Kitchens, warehouses, churches, barracks. He lists the places and smiles once, not with joy, but with recognition, as if he sees a catalog he can still order from if he has the number. At 11:59, the overhead lights dim by a shade. My eyes want to move to the clock. I stop them. Malachi watches the fixture, not the hands. The second hand ticks, the minute hand slides. Noon arrives with a thunk from somewhere above a ceiling tile, as if a relay pulled in hard. The phones in the staff hallway chirp and drop. The TV buffer spins and then holds on a blue screen. Mendoza's radio squeals until he thumbs the volume down. Count 4, Malachi says, as if reading a recipe. I pat my left pocket. It is not a show. It is my hand moving on its own path. I hear the coin click under the fabric. I do not look at him. I count. 1, 2, 3, 4. The lights steady again. The intercom speaks with a human voice this time, not the recorded county one. Admin control. West exits will stage first for release when cleared by county. East gate holds due to door contact fault. Engineering en route. I set the pencil down and do nothing for a second. Doing nothing is how I mark a moment to look at later. Ask now, he says, without telling me what to ask. What will fail next? I hear myself say. Paper, he says. Always paper. A form will be signed twice where it should be signed once, and someone will run back for a blank in a building that is locked for the drill. That person will look for a pen that is not permitted in this wing and ask you if he can borrow yours. Tell him no. Tell him to ask the property office for a pencil packet. The officer in the property office keeps a packet taped under the counter. If you say the word taped, he will trust that you are not guessing. We sit in the hum. Outside the glass, the corridor moves like a river with stones in it. Quick, then slow, then quick again around the corners. The facts of his case remain where they are, in binders and transcripts, and places that do not breathe. What is alive in this room is the precision with which he describes things that most people step over without seeing. My job is to put living details on tape. I keep my voice level, but I press on. What is the apocalypse to you? I ask. You used the word. What does it mean here? A revealing, he says. That is the old meaning, not flames, a curtain pulled. Today the curtain is a transport truck on its side, and a door sensor that sticks, and a policy written by a person who never stood under this ceiling. The revealing is that we live this way every day. Today just shows it. A knock on the door behind me ends the thread. Mendoza opens it enough to speak without crossing the threshold. Control wants to start clearing outside contractors out the west side. You're an outside contractor today. We need to get you staged. He looks at Malachi. His face does not change. We will resume if admin allows. I turn to Malachi. If we do not resume, I say, is there a line you want on the record now? Yes, he says. Tell people to reset the wall clocks in the rooms they trust most. The officers unhook the chain and lead him toward the door on his side of the glass. He does not look back at me like a character in a movie would. He steps where the officer's hand directs. The door closes. The chain slides. I stop the recorders. Mendoza signs my equipment sheet again where it says custody returned. We move into the hallway that smells of masks and soap and hot ductwork. When we reach the admin cube nearest the west exit, a junior officer is flipping through a stack on a clipboard and frowning. He asks if I have a pen. I keep my mouth closed. He asks again, less as a request and more as a habit. I shake my head. Property office has pencil packets, I say, taped under the counter. He freezes, then laughs once like a person deciding to admit he is lost. How did you know that? He asks. I do not say prophet, I say, a man who listens told me. He returns with a packet of golf pencils, the tape end dangling. He hands forms through a slot, one to me, one to a contractor from an HVAC company who looks out of place in this air. The contractor signs, pockets a copy, and heads toward a door that an officer holds with a boot because the door closer drags. We wait for the all clear. It arrives as a set of instructions delivered like numbers, not like a speech. The county has the spill corralled. The wind is steady. The perimeter roads will open in a stagger. The facility will resume normal movement in phases. We move. The West Sallyport hums and locks and opens like a machine that had a good morning. A truck idles by the curb. A long, flat plume of white cloud hangs over the interstate in a slice you could cut with a knife if knives were allowed here. The sun presses on the yard. A lonely basketball sits in an empty court below the south wall. I sign out at the gate. Mendoza walks me to the outer door. He stops with his hand on the bar. You'll write it straight? He asks. As straight as I can, I say. He nods one time and opens to the heat. I step into a world that looks the same as it did at 7:58, except that my ears now know 10 new notes inside its common hum. The parking lot glitters. The air smells faintly of detergent and hot gravel. I put the equipment case on the passenger seat and sit with the door open and the engine off. I do not drive yet. I rewind the tape a few seconds and listen to the clock in my voice. I call my editor from the lot. The call fails twice. I do not push it. I write a line on the top page of the notebook. He did not predict fire from heaven. He predicted an intercom. The sentence looks too clever, so I cross it out and write simpler. He pays attention. People do not. My phone buzzes with a county push alert confirming roads open westbound. I start the car. The radio scans through static into a voice that is not county, just an afternoon host telling small stories about a county fair that will try again this weekend if the heat breaks. I pull out. The chain link throws moving shadows across the hood. On the sidewalk outside the staff entrance, a woman in an admin badge holds a soda to her forehead and smiles at nothing, just grateful for shade. The world is ordinary and, for the moment, safe. The word safe in admin voices is never a promise. It is a status light. It is green until it is not. At a light a mile away, I finally reach the editor. I give him the skeleton while the arrow stares red. He asks if I can go back for color, and I explain the drill, the lockdown, the schedule. He asks if I got enough. I tell him I did not, but I got what mattered. The arrow turns. I drive. In the mirror, the plume over the interstate looks smaller and less important than it did up close. I know better than to trust distance. Back at the motel, I lay the gear out like evidence. I play the digital file to check the levels. I play the cassette because the hiss makes me honest. I transcribe fast while the memory is still warm. I leave out the flourish I wrote in the lot, because it was me showing off and not the story. I keep the detail about the taped pencil packet. I keep the timing of the county voice. I keep his line about the wall clock, because it rings true in rooms far from this one. Near 3 p.m., my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number, the chaplain. He writes that the request about the lake photo will be honored in spirit. He asks if I would send a note describing the lake as Malachi remembered it, because mailed pictures undergo screening delays and may not land where they should in time. He is careful with words. I write back that I do not know the lake and cannot invent it for him. He replies that he will work with what he has. The line carries the calm of a person who lives in rooms where calm keeps rooms from tipping. I think of the interviews I have done in other places and the stories that tried to make a man into a symbol because a symbol sells better. I write that thought down so I can recognize it and reject it if I start to make the same mistake now. I go through the letter stack again and find the first one he sent, the one with the sharp corners, the one that sounded like a person who had trimmed his life down to a clean edge and sat with it. There is a line in the margin that I missed before. Do not hurry the shape of the truth. Let it stand up on its own. I take a walk behind the motel, where a service road runs along a drainage ditch. The air tastes like cut grass and diesel. A man in a utility vest kneels by a junction box with the lid off, checking contacts with a meter. He taps the faceplate hard once and the numbers steady. He grins at the meter as if it is a friend who always tells the truth. I store that little scene like a note for later. It belongs to this day. When I get back to the room, I call the public information line at the prison and ask if the facility will allow me to return in the morning for 30 minutes before count. The admin voice says it depends on movement and on counsel and on the warden's calendar, in that order. She tells me to call at 6 a.m. for status. I set an alarm for 5:40. I check the coin in my pocket and leave it where it is. I reset the room clock because it is 6 minutes slow, and because that is the kind of thing that will bother me now that someone said the words out loud. Sleep in a motel on a reporting trip is rarely sleep. It is waiting in a dark place with your shoes close. At 2:18, a freight train throws a long horn across the parking lot, and the walls hum for a second after it passes. I get up and look out at rows of license plates that do not mean anything, except that the world is still out there buying gas and answering alarms and bringing sandwiches through metal detectors. I sit on the edge of the bed and listen to the room breathe. The alarm rings. I dress in the same clothes because I learned not to change mid-story unless I have to. The air outside has the cool of a morning that will heat up fast. I drive the 2 miles and park and sign in and let the buzzer push me forward. The officer at the gate recognizes me by the case. He says nothing, hands me the clipboard, and points to the shoe outlines. The first door shuts. The second door opens. The same fluorescent bars greet me like a chorus that does not tire. The admin desk says I will have 20 minutes, counsel approved by phone. The chaplain stopped by earlier to say a prayer that met policy. I ask no questions about that moment because the room where it happened is not for me and never will be. I follow Mendoza past the vending machines, past the TV that now plays morning news with the sound off, past a bulletin board with a notice about a potluck in a handwriting that belongs to someone who believes in potlucks. Malachi sits in the same chair on the other side of the glass. He looks like a man who slept, or who did not, but decided to honor the day anyway. I set the recorders down and press the buttons and say the date and the time. He nods once to the habit. I did not come to say wise things, he says. I came to finish what we started. What did we start? You asked me about the apocalypse, he says. I want to say the rest plain. It is not only patterns and corners. It is also mercy. When systems fail, people think mercy is a luxury. It is not. It is a tool. Yesterday you told a junior officer where a pencil packet was taped. That saved 2 minutes and kept a door from being propped and kept a man from improvising under stress. That is mercy. We think mercy is soft. Mercy is tight bolts and clear labels. Mercy is telling the truth before the alarm. I do not move. I let the sentence land and sit like a crate you do not slide because the weight inside is balanced. Outside the glass, keys jingle against a belt. A voice calls count in a tone that has practiced this word more than any other. The facility breathes on a schedule. My 20 minutes are nearly gone. Say this also, he says. I was not chosen. I am not special. I ruin things. I hurt people. Do not dress me in a title that makes me clean. If you write prophet, cross it out. Write witness. If you write witness, cross it out. Write man. A knock. Mendoza opens the door enough to show me the clock. We have to clear. He does not add a reason. Reasons pile up into arguments in this place. Schedules are enough. I thank Malachi for his time. He nods once, the same way he did yesterday. He does not rise until the officer touches his sleeve. He leaves without ceremony. There is no good line to finish this. There is only the sound of the door closing and the pencil notch on my page where I stop. Outside, the day is bright. The interstate plume is gone. A helicopter thumps south toward the hospital. The fairground banner on the fence by the road has a new date taped over the old one. A worker on a ladder smooths the tape with his palm and steps down careful, counting the rungs out loud to himself so he does not miss one. I drive past and slow so I can watch him finish the last step. He pats his back pocket, not for a coin, but for a phone, and he smiles when he finds it. Small rituals, small assurances. Back at the desk, I write the piece with the window open and the sound of trucks downshifting on the service road. I build the story line by line, refusing to let easy phrases crawl in. I describe the intercom without giving the county's script room more drama than it had. I describe the taped pencil packet because taped pencil packets are the kind of detail that make a reader feel the floor under a scene. I end where he asked me to end. Not with a claim, but with an instruction anyone can follow. Reset the wall clock in the room you trust most. Listen to what the vent says when it changes. If a door sticks, do not hide the stick with a strong push. Fix the hinge. That is not poetry. That is how rooms stay rooms and not hallways that narrow by an inch an hour. When I file, I keep a copy of the tape and the paper and the note about the coin in a folder labeled with the date. The folder goes in a drawer where other names sit. Some of those names are still living in cells. Some are not. I do not make altars out of drawers. I make archives. That is my job. I interview death row inmates for a living. I shake hands with officers at gates and talk into metal rooms and look for truth the way a person looks for a door in dim light. By touch more than by sight. At dusk, I drive back past the prison on my way to the highway. The yard is quiet. The same lonely basketball sits in the same square of shade. The staff lot hums with engines turning over for night shift. The sky holds a long wash of orange that will not make it into any official report. I roll the window down and let the warm air push in. Somewhere a relay clicks, and a door somewhere opens and closes. The world does not end. It does not begin. It reveals. I put the car in gear and move with it.